All righty. Well, welcome everybody. I'm excited for those of you who are going to watch this video. I have a very special guest here with me. I have Paul Coyle, who is the founder and director of the Entrepreneurial Mindset Network. His vision is that anybody, not just entrepreneurs, can benefit from the entrepreneurial mindset, including employees in the private, public, and not-for-profit sectors. The network is a community of practice with members in 98 countries, and its mission is to inspire you to make your unique contribution to the world. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, Jay. It's great to see you, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Same here. You know what the interesting thing about this world that we live in, this internet world, is like we've never met in person. Hopefully
No,
one day we can. But because of this network that you have, we were able to meet through it. So,
yeah, I've never really thought about that before. I feel as though I know you quite well, that we know each other quite well, because
yeah.
we've actually been using this technology for a long time, haven't we? And isn't it wonderful that you're able to talk to anybody on the planet, wherever they are? It's brilliant.
Yeah, and this is great. So, we're across the sea from each other. So, but we still connect and we still talk. So this
Yeah.
is
And
wonderful.
one day we'll definitely get together.
For sure. But to guide this conversation, you want to talk about the entrepreneur mindset in Europe, right? And I think
Yeah.
it really intrigues me because as we talk about, everybody always thinks that, entrepreneurship is just in the United States. We've heard that
Ah,
throughout
okay. Yeah, yeah.
many times. And so that's the reason I want to talk to you because you're in Europe, right? And you know about more of that in that environment. So kind of the one of the first questions I want to ask to kind of guide this conversation as we talk about entrepreneurial mindset in Europe
Yeah.
is how do you define the entrepreneurial mindset?
Isn't that that's a really great place to start? What is the entrepreneurial mindset? I suppose I came to my own view about what it is by just simply thinking, what are entrepreneurs? What are they doing? And I suppose an intriguing question that we all have is what makes them successful? Because we're always aware of in the media of the people who we think of as being very successful entrepreneurs. And I suppose that gets us thinking, well, could I do that? And I think a lot of people sort of doubt that and they lack confidence and they think, I wouldn't know where to begin, or, how do you do that? That couldn't possibly be me. I think that for me, entrepreneurship is this, that we spend most of our time seeing things around us and thinking, well, that could be better, or no, somebody could sort that out. And we say to ourselves, why has nobody done that? Why has nobody sorted out this problem that's in my neighborhood? Why has nobody opened a cafe? Because it would be great to have a cafe there. And I think it's when you go from saying, why has nobody done something about this, to saying to yourself, what am I going to do? And that for me is the entrepreneurial moment. It doesn't need to be about opening a business. It could be, why has nobody opened this business? I think I will do that. Yeah. But the essential thing is that you're going to do something. You're going to take an action. And so therefore I started to think, well, how do entrepreneurs behave? Not just how do they think? Because when we say entrepreneurial mindset, we think, oh, is it just a way of thinking? Yeah. But what are they doing? How do they act? And I wanted to come up with a definition which was easy to remember, quick to understand. I'm sure the people in the call, you could read books by entrepreneurs. I actually found that some of those were not so clear. They tended to talk about some sort of secret source, that it was just them. So that was hard to get hold of. You could look at academic research papers. Not many people have access to them. They're very complicated. They're written in a lot of jargon. It's not very practical stuff. And I also thought about, well, what have I been doing? What did I find works? And what's really hard? So the mindset, I think, is relevant to starting and running, scaling a business. But what I also really believe is that it's relevant if you're an employee. You could be in a corporate, you could be in a startup, you could be in the private sector, the public sector, the not-for-profit sector. And so for me, the definition has to cover all of those people, be relevant to all of those people, but not lose the essence of what it is to be an entrepreneur. And so we use this fancy name for it as a mnemonic, but basically we just take the word mindset.
Yeah.
We allocate one behavior to each of those letters to try and make it, as understandable as possible for people. So M, what does M stand for? M stands for meet a real need. And what this says is that successful entrepreneurs do something, they provide a product or a service that people want, that they're prepared to pay for. And they're successful, they're super successful when they're providing something that lots of people want. So if lots of people buy your product or your service, you're going to be really successful. So M is meet a real need. And you can say to yourself, well, whose needs do I meet? How well do I meet them? How many people? Is this a small opportunity or a big opportunity? I stands for innovate, and it says think differently, embrace diversity, be creative, find new ways to do things. N, this is quite an interesting one. It sounds complicated at first, but it stands for never act unethically. So let's just think about that. Let's start by saying that not everybody thinks it's a good idea to be an entrepreneur. And some people object to the whole idea of it. They think, hang on, here are these people, they just want to make money. They're exploiting people by not paying them enough. They're using up all the earth's resources. Well, who are these people? So we take that on board and we say, never act unethically. And we say that entrepreneurship, in our definition, is about behaving responsibly. It's not just about the money. It can be about creating economic, social or cultural value in society. You can be an artist, you can be a dancer, you can be a fashion designer. These are all really great things to be. D, what could be more entrepreneurial than D, dare to take risks. And what it says is that that's not reckless, that's not just gambling. It's taking the risk that's going to create an opportunity for you which otherwise would not be available. And some of the risks we need to learn to take are to speak up, to say what we really think, to speak out when we see something that we don't agree with. These are all part of risk-taking behavior. S is sell. Entrepreneurs sell. They're good at it. They sell you the product. They sell you the service. And it's also about winning people over, convincing them, because although the idea of entrepreneurship has at the core of it, this idea of the one successful person who rose up above everybody else and became super successful. In reality, everybody depends upon teamwork, collaboration, and S is about convincing people to get on board, support you, to encourage you, maybe to invest in you, all those aspects of selling. E is exercise for productivity. Because the truth is, especially if you're starting off by yourself as an entrepreneur, you're doing it all by yourself. You're working every hour. You're working the weekends. You're working the evenings. You're working the vacation. And it's hard to get everything done. So we need to understand, how can you have a good work-life balance? How can you have a good physical and mental health? And all of those things are to do with productivity, getting everything done in the time that's available. And we come to T then, the last letter in the mindset. T, take action, take the initiative. And this is the whole idea I'm trying to get across. Don't wait, don't put it off. Don't stand back thinking, oh, I'll do that next week or next month, or I'll wait for somebody else to do it. Why has nobody else done this? You say to yourself, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do something about it today. So I hope that in that short description, Jay, trying to explain what the letters in mindset mean, it convinces you that actually that's a sort of understandable description of what entrepreneurs do. And the other thing we really want people to understand is that it's common sense. It's not unknowable. It's not something you can't understand or can't learn. It's something that all of us, anybody, can do.
Yeah. Well, speaking about taking action, so you had to take action to start this Entrepreneurial Mindset Network. So what led you? So I'll start off with this one.
Yeah.
What led you to this world of entrepreneurial
Yeah.
mindset?
No,
What was that moment,
yeah,
or how did you get to this?
it's another great question. I think everybody's on their own individual journey as to how they get to it or what they do about it.
Yeah.
For me, I had been working in universities and teaching students on courses that were supposed to lead to them getting a job.
Mm-hmm.
So these were things like computer programming and systems analysis and design, coding, those sorts of things, but also art and design, artists, graphic designers, fashion designers, gamers, coders. And all the time we were thinking, well, how do we make sure that these people get their qualification and then they get a good job? Mm-hmm. Or if they want to be self-employed, they can do that. Or if they want to be an entrepreneur and set up a company and employ other people, they can do that too. Mm-hmm. And there are loads of interesting questions that come out of that, because you say to yourself, well, what do I want the students to be like? What do they need to know? What do they need to be able to do? And the really great question is to then say, well, if the students are going to be like that, what do the faculty need to be like? Mm-hmm. You know, what skills do they have? What knowledge do they have? What about the administrators? What about the leaders? Yeah. Then you can even start to think, well, what is in the local town or city? What's in the state? What's the support that would help students to get their jobs? Yeah. And the great thing is you can't really think about entrepreneurship and education without thinking, well, hang on, what is this college supposed to be achieving? What is this university doing? How much does it cost? How would we know whether it's been successful? So those were all things which were sort of in my mind and what I was thinking about. And then in 2013, I thought, well, if you're really going to understand this, you need to leave being an employee and go and try and be self-employed, be an entrepreneur yourself. Yeah. So I started self-employed, set up a consultancy business, helping universities, colleges to think about how can you be more entrepreneurial. And in a 4-year period, I had an amazing experience of meeting people and talking to people from 59 countries around the world about this question about how can you help students to become entrepreneurs? How can you become an entrepreneurial educator? And having met all those people, I sort of sat back and thought, well, maybe this isn't just about education. Maybe this is about everything. And that's how I then got to the idea of entrepreneurial mindset. As you said in your introduction, something that's relevant to everybody. Yeah. It can be setting up a business, but it can be an employee, and it can be the corporate, it can be a startup, it could be a not-for-profit. So that's how I then began to think, and it's what I've been working on since 2017, the Entrepreneurial Mindset Network. How do we help people to believe that they could understand the mindset and they can use it to make their unique contribution to the world? And our starting point is that everybody can do that.
Yeah. So through your work in a network,
yeah,
and this is going to lead me to talk about Europe. So how do individuals in the European continent, right? We talk about all these countries, right? Britain, Netherlands.
Yes, yeah.
How do they apply the Entrepreneurial Mindset Network and entrepreneurial mindset? Yeah. And the reason I ask this is because, you know, in the U.S., there's been saying the secret sauce of the innovation of the United States has been entrepreneurship. They don't say that really about Europe. But how do people in Europe, like, how does the entrepreneurial mindset work specifically, like in Europe?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, and I love the fact that you started by saying, well, maybe this is a US thing, and perhaps in the US we don't think of Europe as being very entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. One of the things to say first of all, which is to give us a sense of the complication of this, is there's 44 countries which are in Europe. And we have to start then by saying, oh, hang on, there's 44 of them. Well, they're all quite different, because when I think of France, or I think of Italy, or I think of Spain, I might know of them, and I think of those as being different places with different cultures, different economies. And I think that one of the things which does distinguish the different countries in Europe is some of them are more used to the idea of an entrepreneur, of somebody starting a business. We can think of somewhere like Estonia, where they have gone out of their way as a government to make sure that it's really easy to open a new business. They wanted to be able to do that all online and to make it happen in minutes.
Mm-hmm.
There are other countries where the idea of entrepreneurship is not very well established, where the majority of people are employed as employees in a company, or they work for the government, or they work in the public sector in something which is funded through the government. So for them, the idea of entrepreneurship is not so familiar, and they're slightly further back. So I would say to you that different countries are at different levels. Some of them are quite entrepreneurial, and I think from a US perspective, you would recognize what they're doing, the way in which they're starting companies, the way in which they're gaining investment, the effect that's having on the economy. I think other countries you would look at and you would think, well, they haven't even started yet. But the debate, I think the debate is going on. But, one of the things you said at the beginning is the Entrepreneurial Mindset Network has members in 98 countries. Now, the reason I think the figure 98 is interesting is, for me, that says there is a worldwide interest in entrepreneurial mindset. And there certainly is a worldwide interest in how do you support new startups. And I would say basically that we've sort of got that covered. We know how to support new startups. What we don't know is how to scale up businesses. That's more of a difficult problem. But I think that for people who are listening, I would want them to feel that the entrepreneurial mindset is something for them. It's something that is for everybody. We've got 98 countries. I've actually got a little list here, which I thought you might be interested in. So I tweet only on Mondays and Fridays, and only one tweet a day. But I look on the internet and I try and find an example of people who are using the entrepreneurial mindset. And then I look back at what we had tweeted about in January to March this year. And I made a note of all the different types of work that people are doing. So, and here's a list. It'll take like a minute or two to go through it, but I think it's really interesting. Architecture, artificial intelligence, banking, basketball, branding, brewing of alcohol, cybercrime, design, digital transformation, e-commerce, ecology, engineering, farming, fashion, female entrepreneurship, financial services, fishing, food, government, healthcare, higher education, innovation, investment, music, non-profits, philanthropy, rural businesses, school education, skateboarding, sport, social enterprise, startup, sustainability, technology. It really is out there for everybody. Everybody is interested in this. Everybody's working on it. Everybody's trying to understand how it works, how it affects them, what they could do about it. And I think that for me, the really interesting thing is how can we learn from each other? And if the US, for example, has loads and loads of experience in this, how can we learn from what the US experience has been? And equally, I think there'll be things which can be learned from all the different people, all the different areas they're working in, all the different cultures.
Yeah. So with 44 countries in the European continent, which, maybe you don't have to name an exact country, but which one would you say is ahead of, like, their entrepreneurship is just ahead of the curve? They're at the cream of the creme. They're at the top. There's a lot of, and in entrepreneurship, we measure usually by investments. And so, what country is the most like at the top? Would you say?
It's a really good question, and also I'm glad that you're making sure that it's a hard question. It's sort of let's cut to the chase and say what we're really talking about. I think that you can look to all sorts of league tables that are produced for the world, but also specifically for Europe, to see things like the level of innovation or the level of investment or the performance of an economy. You can find information about all those things. I would say that in general, we tend to think of the northern countries as performing better than the southern countries. So that's thinking about things like the United Kingdom, France, Norway, things which are countries which are in the north of Europe, as compared to, say, Italy or Spain. And yet, even as I'm saying that, into my mind is coming all the people that I know who are really active in Spain and all the people who are active in Italy. There genuinely is activity everywhere. It's just that people are on a different part of the entrepreneurial journey. Some people are much further ahead. Yeah. Some people are further behind, but they're still starting, they're still working at it. It's a sort of concept that everybody is getting involved in. And don't forget, of course, that we have a form of organization that sits over all the different countries, the European Union. And what they are doing is trying to invest in and encourage entrepreneurship in all sorts of areas that would improve the economic performance of the European Union as a whole. So they invest a lot of activity, a lot of money in, for example, healthcare and food and climate and a whole host of different activities where they are trying to, if you like, invest so that we can, as a group of countries and as a European Union, improve our competitiveness and our economic performance.
Okay. And so with that, what do you think is the underlying, I don't want to say it's not an issue, but what is the underlying factor that countries, like, is it the government needs to support more of countries, or is it just the individuals themselves haven't to gravitate as much to entrepreneurship? What is it, the government, or is it people that haven't gravitated?
Yeah, I think it's culture. I think that, for some people, you grow up in a culture where entrepreneurship is not presented to you as a desirable option. And one of the things which is quite interesting about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial mindset is, who are the role models and where are they? And what are those role models doing? Now, I think it's really interesting. I remember coming to the States in, I think, 97, and meeting some people and being really impressed by the way they said, well, I had this company and it failed, and so I closed that one and I started this other one. Mm-hmm. I mean, for somebody from the UK, that seemed like an extraordinary thing to say. But obviously there were lots of people around them doing a similar thing. Yeah. I think that it's got something to do with the culture of where you are. I think it's got something to do with the great cities of the world and the resources that they have available. Go to San Francisco and you meet everybody from all around the planet, and they're all there because they're interested in networking, in developing, in collaborating, in getting investment. You just walk into a bar and you get talking to somebody and they're there doing that. Yeah. So the city is set up for it as well. And I think so it's a whole level of different things, Jerry. I think it starts with the individual. Yeah. It's got something to do with their family and friends and their role models. It's got something to do with how they're educated. It's got something to do with what's in your neighborhood or what's in your city, or what, as a nation, what the government is doing in terms of encouraging people, giving off signals that we think this is important and actually will help you to do it because we provide this infrastructure, we provide this investment. Yeah. And the really interesting thing about entrepreneurial mindset and successful entrepreneurs and the ones who become like the stars of entrepreneurship is that despite the fact that there were no role models, despite the fact there was no encouragement, despite there was no investment and there was no support from a government, they did it anyway. Yeah. And I think that goes back to what we're saying about take the initiative, believe in yourself. Think about the contribution you can make to the world, your unique contribution, the thing that's special about you. And I think that So we do need to think about incentives and rewards and investment, but I suppose maybe the true stars of entrepreneurship, they do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to leave ask this one kind of final question with regards to Europe. Have universities in European continent, have they gravitated towards offering more entrepreneurship courses? In the United States now we have courses, even degrees. Now they even got you can get a PhD in entrepreneurship. So has universities out in Europe, has they gravitated more towards offering courses in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is definitely going on. And what's happening is, like you just said, you can study for a degree qualification or a postgraduate qualification. You can study to get a doctorate in it now. Okay. But also what's happening is that universities are making sure that even if you're not a business student, or even if you're not a student who ultimately wants to be an entrepreneur, there are electives, there are modules you can take in addition to your main study, so that you don't leave the university without knowing something about what entrepreneurs do. And I'm working with universities all over Europe who are trying to improve the educational opportunities for their students, and at the same time trying to make sure that they have the right faculty who have the right knowledge, the right experience, the right mindset to enable students to achieve those things.
Okay. And so I think just to wrap up, how do people get involved with the Entrepreneurial Mindset Network? Is it free, or where do people go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you for asking that. Well, it's the Entrepreneurial Mindset Network, and its web address is www.entrepreneurial mindset.network. So it's entrepreneurial mindset.network. So it's easy to find. I'm sure if you Google Entrepreneurial Mindset Network, we'll be there. We're one of the top hits, so you'll find us easily. We're a free membership organization. I think that's really important. We're an international community of practice. We're in 98 countries. We're trying to help people to understand what the mindset is. So we try and define it. We try to offer examples so that people can quickly see what it is and work out how it's relevant to them. We run webinars so that our members can meet each other and exchange ideas and talk to each other. We're trying to create a practical guidance. So you could say, I want to try that. What should I do? For example, you can buy a book from us online. It's in a print and electronic version. And that's a real sort of step-by-step guide to what the mindset is and how to put it into practice, whether you want to run a business, whether you want to take on climate change, whatever the issue is that you're interested in. So yeah, those are some of the ways that we try and support our members. But yeah, our main premise is that it should be free.
Okay. Well, Paul, thank you very much. Any last words of wisdom for those seeking or wanting to be having more of an entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, I think that just give it a go, and don't be put off and don't think this can't be me. Say to yourself, well, okay, I'm as good as anybody else. This is what I'm interested in. I would like to run a business. So I'm going to find out, how do you do that? I want to be a really great employee, help my customers and get a promotion. Yeah. I really want to sort out climate change. Really think about what you care about. It could be something about you, your family, your neighborhood. And say to yourself, I don't need anybody's permission to do something about this. I want to do something about it. Bring your own innovation, creativity, dare to do something. And have a think about, what's the one thing I could do today? I always say that don't make it too complicated. A really great thing anybody could do today was to say, okay, there were one or two interesting things that Jay and Paul said to each other. Yeah. Who would I tell that? Who should I sort of call up and say, I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee and just tell you about this conversation that I listened to with Jay and Paul, and it made me think, and I wanted to tell you. And good things will just come out of making that opportunity to have a conversation with someone. Doesn't need to be complicated.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul. There you have it, folks. Thank you for this conversation, Paul. Really enjoyed it. And of course, make sure you like and subscribe. And we will be sharing this video for everybody across the world
Great.
to know more about the entrepreneurial mindset, and especially entrepreneurial mindset in Europe. All right,
Brilliant.
Paul.
Thanks, Jay.
All righty.